All right, and welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Ryan Matthews, with Jeffrey Klein here. We are on your Market Monday for Monday, February 19th. This is your weekly market recap, just giving you a breakdown of the Arizona real estate markets in Maricopa and Pinal counties from the last week and what we're seeing in the trenches. So, without further ado, let's hit right to it. We had some rate increases last week, but nobody really talked about it.
I think that might be by design, right? I mean,
exactly.
I think that a lot of lenders are a little bit leery about putting that out there. I think a lot of realtors are too. Unfortunately, it's the reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that we're going to have to deal with again. And we say slight increases. I mean, we peaked at like 8% last year sometime, and so we're still well below that, but firmly in the sevens right now. Maybe a little bit better depending on credit, but certainly interesting. So, yeah, I think that people just didn't put it out there on purpose. So.
Agreed. I think it's half that and half where what we've talked about is it's kind of become a normal thing where we're just kind of used to where the market is right now. And so it's not as big of a deal. We're kind of hit normalcy and it's not as volatile. And so I think that's where a lot of people, I mean, I do have some clients who are considering selling or buying and they're a little bit rate sensitive, wanting to time the market. But for the most part, it was kind of just a blip on the radar and still business as usual from what we've seen and what we've heard, I think.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to see how it kind of shapes out over the next couple of weeks. I think that'll really kind of show us the impact. I think that the market had priced in a Fed rate reduction, and it did not happen.
Agreed.
And so I think that's a little bit part of it. So
yeah, and I think when we had Chad on a couple of weeks ago, that's what he was talking about. Is it's all based on forecasts and expectations.
Yes,
and it not doing what was expected. I'm not totally surprised that the rates went up a little bit. It's just kind of the speculation of where they think it's going to go. And yeah, it totally did not surprise me. I mean, I watch them like you do, but it wasn't, it was one of those things that it just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't hear too much about it. And we're just continuing moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, like we said too, we talked about core inflation. That went up. It was higher than we thought. We were hoping for a 2 handle, came in at a 3 handle. And then jobs reports came back. More jobs than, which is so funny, right? You think more jobs is good, and in some cases it is, but apparently not for mortgage interest rates. So
I know it's such a weird balance how it all works and plays into everything.
Yeah.
And I think again too, the big thing we need to look at is, I mean, we work in the two major counties in the state, Pinal and Maricopa and Pinal counties, and they're vastly different worlds as far as what the pricing and what the market and the velocity and the appetite for selling and buying is completely different, even 30 minutes from each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, anecdotally, I've got a couple listings in Pinal County, and they're slow, man. They're really slow. We're pulling out all the tricks. We're taking things temporarily off market, bringing them back with $1 or more price reduction. I took a home off the market for 55 days, something like that. Put it back on the market. Have had one showing, right? It's just slow. And again, we're 35 minutes from Chandler, right? Is where those houses are. So they're really, and Chandler is probably the southernmost part of Maricopa County, I would think.
Right.
So, it's just interesting. It's just interesting to see the different dynamics at play. Whereas Chandler is one of the hottest markets right now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's very much I think that goes back to kind of the rates and everything with the media. It's very much a localized market, and it always will be, because it is specific to what that clientele is doing, the migration patterns that we watch. You really can't paint a broad brush with real estate. And that's why, I mean, I follow the real estate news, but I don't put my hat on anything I hear nationally. And that even potentially for anything on the local news, because it's still not market specific by town, neighborhood, etc. And that's how granular sometimes real estate has to be.
It's funny because we were talking off camera about that real estate show that I watch every morning, and they had mentioned in that one today, there's a quote, and I'm going to butcher it because he butchered it too. He didn't even get it right. But it's about bringing the macro economics, like the macroeconomics of real estate, back down to a micro level. And I
I
agree with
like that.
that, right? It's like it's okay to have that knowledge and that, but you got to realize like what's being out there is probably not exactly what's happening in your market. So as long as you understand both, because people are going to ask you about both,
Exactly.
I think that you can be in a good place with it. And so, I know we both do a good job at that. It's kind of like blocking out some of the noise and really just paying attention to literally what's happening in our market and the data. But it's always, it's always good to have that. So
Exactly. And I think you have to follow the macro because you have to understand that like it helps us get a better client understanding as far as what expectations or fears or feelings about the market most people are going to come from those sources like that are the news or your Apple feed or something like that, not from typically from your local real estate agent as much.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's just we just have to expect that and manage that and then be able to, like you said, understand the macro, bring it down to the micro level and distill it and say, hey, based upon these streets in this neighborhood, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on there.
Yep.
Yeah. Another question I've been getting, sellers have been asking, when is the best time to sell? I have an appointment later this week to consult with a potential seller. And I have another potential one that he's been just trying to time the market. And ultimately it still goes back, it's when is the first answer is going to be when is the best time for you? And then what your goals are. And we can make it work at any point. But if you're in some markets, we have to be super aggressive on price. In some, it just depends on the house too. We saw that one on Zillow Gone Wild in Gilbert that went crazy.
Yeah.
Like the whole, they're getting calls from around the world on that one. And that one probably will go quick. But then there's other ones that different factors come into play that are going to affect how it's going to sell.
I mean, I think it's the reality for everything, right? Is like any market's a good market to sell. Anytime's a good time to sell if you actually understand the market and if the market meets your goals, right? If the market doesn't meet your goals, then it's not a good time to sell. But if you understand that you have to price correctly no matter what market you're in, market your home correctly, again, no matter what market you're in, and then kind of know the dynamics between buyers and sellers markets, and have a good agent that can kind of like guide you through that. As long as you understand those couple things, like it's always a good time to sell, right? And so you just have to be willing to listen to the feedback. So that's
Precisely.
I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it comes down to a good agent on the front end to managing those expectations and being able to say, hey, these are what it's going to take to get your house to sell or to get you the best deal to buy. I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, agreed.
What have you been seeing in some of your business this week that's been new?
Stuff that's been new, dude. Let me think. I am getting more calls and more people that want to list their home. And kind of what does that look like? I think it's a big thing. So same thing, kind of like what you're saying. I think last week we put that one back on the market. I shot listing photos for a different one. Some listing activity picking up for one of my other ones that has been listed for a while. We finally got a showing after a few months. And so just things like that, I think we're starting to see some more activity in listings and people wanting to sell. To me, it feels very much like the pandemic in this regard, right? Is that people were tired of being in their homes, right? And so eventually when they could buy and they could get out, they started going crazy and everything shot up, right?
Right.
I think that we're kind of seeing the opposite side of that, whereas people are tired of being in their homes and now they want to sell. And they're like, well, yeah, it sucks. It's not the best time to sell, but I need to move on with my life to something different, whether it's a bigger house, smaller house, job change, moving out of the country, out of the state, whatever. I think that that's kind of what we're starting to see, and people are willing to forego losing their rates, their locked in low rates, for something else because they know that they have to. I think we're kind of past that point where people can wait. So that's what I mean, right? Is I think that we're starting to see some of that cooped up energy, I think, around listings personally.
Right. I think what we've talked about before, it's more of a needs based. People are making moves, and I think what we're seeing is people aren't. It's becoming, instead of waiting for those needs to hit, they're more open to exploring. Hey, you know what? We actually do just want to move. Instead, what does that look like? And getting a lot more exploratory calls. I'd love to get a home value. I think just like in general, all of that is kind of like starting to sprout a little bit more, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that'll be kind of interesting to see how it plays out too, because if we get a lot more of those calls and everybody's starting to get more of those calls, what does that do to inventory levels? With buyer demand being kind of low, that'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out,
Right.
But I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And speaking of inventory, I mean, it's still up just a little bit. Not a ton, but we are still seeing that just climb a little bit. So
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot that is new on the market that is coming soon. The days on markets are better than what was it? Better than last year.
Yes.
Now,
days on market are worse than last year.
Worse than last year.
Worse than
it's
last year. It's
taking longer to sell than it was last year at this time.
But listing success rate is up, and what we mean by that is literally what it sounds like is that 75% of listings right now are actually going to sell based on statistics, right? There's a lot of factors that go into it, but as a whole, right, that's what you can kind of expect. Versus, I think last year we were at like
72.4 last year, and now we're at 75.
Yeah. So, I mean, not much better, marginal, but still, anytime we can be above 75%, anytime we can be probably above 72%, we're probably in a good spot. There's another one I pointed out to you too.
I think that was a success rate and
I will say the average price monthly sales is up from 520 to 566 over the last year, right? I think that's an important metric. I think people think that the market is going down, and in reality, it's not. There's another one that I found interesting that I did not point out to you, is that our monthly dollar volume is about the same place as it is. Which one was it? We have less sales, but it seems like they're at higher dollar amount. But basically, it just to me is appearing that, and maybe that's just because the market has increased in value over the last year, but we have less sales, and we're projected to do way less sales this year than we did, 2 years ago. We went from 110,000 sales to we're projected to do 72,000 sales this year, which is nothing, right? And so, but the fact is that our monthly volume is sitting higher than it was then, and I think it's because, again, housing prices continue to go up, and we're starting to see a lot of higher end stuff move. Even to the point last coffee talk when I had it was what we have 2,500 listings over $1 million. So that's the first time it's happened. And so again, I think it's just natural appreciation, and then in general, just the higher end stuff seems to be what's going on in the market and selling.
Agreed. And I think ultimately that like we've talked about it, that is a factor that can really trump a lot of the other factors, like, well, are you going to wait and time it and etc. But at the end of the day, you're more than likely going to get more money than you ever probably could have, saved from 2 years ago when it was crazy and probably falsely inflated at that point just based upon everything that was going nuts. But I think now we're seeing something that we can actually probably hang our hat on as a long-term trend of what's happening here in Maricopa and Pinal counties. Like, I think that is not going to come back down. I think, and we know that Phoenix and Arizona has long been overdue to catch up to the rest of the United States. And we're seeing that where it is not. And that's why businesses are coming here. That's why so many families are moving here all the time, because it is that still, for now, taxes are lower. The prices are historically lower than a lot of other markets. And it's really desirable to live here. Right? 78 degrees today, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, we'll kind of wrap it up here, but I saw an article posted by a really, I guess, one of the top luxury realtors. We showed a couple of her properties recently. And so she posted this article, and I think she might be featured, and I didn't click on the article. It's behind a paywall. I'm a little frugal. I don't do paywalls, right? But
you got to go Google it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's a way, dude, right? But in this article, it literally is like why Californians are leaving California for the Beverly Hills of Arizona. And literally it's talking about Paradise Valley. You talked about a needs-based market. That's a need, right? People are trying to escape whatever they're escaping there, not to get political, but better job market, better tax environment, whatever. They're leaving that. And then also I would say too is that like the higher end stuff is moving at a ridiculous velocity. I mean, for what it is, right? I mean, homes are still going to sit for a while because there's not many buyers over 10 million, but they're still moving more than I think we would anticipate. And the stuff that is primed for first-time home buyers, that stuff is moving. But the stuff somewhere in the middle, man, somewhere in the middle between, I'd say, 600,000 to about 1.2, 1.3 million is just kind of stagnant. It's just kind of an interesting place to be.
Yeah, it is a weird spot where people are. I feel like that's a very rate conscious segment.
Demographic, yeah.
Yeah, where it's not like the first time home buyer. It's like, hey, I just want to buy a home. Let's get in. Let's make it happen. Whatever it takes. It's those people are that middle section. I think you're dead on. Where it's like, let's really seek this out. Make sure it's the right prices. It's like, what's the monthly payment going to be, etc. And yeah, I think you're right. That is a weird spot to be in for sure.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we did cover a lot today. We went a little bit longer than we normally do, but it was good stuff. And we appreciate you guys watching. If this is something that somebody you know would like, please hit the share button so they can get to it, like and subscribe. That way you know when the next episode comes out. Again, thanks for watching Market Monday on Real Talk. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.